Okay, so the reason I wanted to do this live stream is because last year I made a production of Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and I really liked how it turned out. I spent a long time on it, a lot longer than I was initially planning on it, but it just because things kind of started clicking into place. I thought I need to get this right. I got deep into it, and then I started realizing, hey, I kind of want to do some music for this too. I'd done some music for some of these before, but this is the first one I kind of really decided, okay, I'm going to actually flesh out a full kind of musical score. And so I think I'm just going to start by, I just want to play through it and let you see it. I want to kind of reflect on it a little bit. So it took a while to put this together. You can see there's all the tracks. There's a lot of them. I have all the dialogue kind of up here at the top, and then, okay, you can see the Who Kids and a bunch of different sound effects down here. So I'm just going to go through from the beginning. Let me see if I can zoom back in. What I want to do is first take a look at the sound effects and how that all panned out, and then I'm going to go take a look at the music. So to start, I'm actually just going to, I have the score here on a separate track that I bounced. That's how I ended up mixing it, because I didn't want to have all the virtual instruments and all the sound effects all in one session, so I did them separately. So I'm just going to mute the score, the music. We're just going to listen to this again just with just the narration and the sound effects, and I want to maybe highlight some stuff. This was a year ago, so.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Every Who down in Whoville.
Okay, there's a little bit of effects on the narration to make it sound a little bit fuller, warmer. You can hear right off the bat. So there should be music here, but without the music, you can hear all these extra little Who Kids that I recorded, and I did some silly voices here, you know.
Oh, look at the snow!
Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot.
So I have all those little voices just to kind of bring the scene to life a little bit.
But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville.
And right off the bat, we have I used the website soundsnap.com. And I thought, okay, right off the bat, we really need to establish where we are. So I think I layered two different snow kind of ambience. I have some wind howling and then just kind of a snowy mountain. On their own, they sound like this. Ooh, feel cool just listening to that. So that's where the Grinch lives. Obviously, he's a Grinch. If you lived in weather that sounded like that, you'd get pretty grumpy too, I bet. I did a little bit of panning. I tried to make sure that I panned to whichever side the picture of the person was on the page. So in the first time we see the Grinch, he's on the left side. So I have his voice kind of panned over here.
The whole Christmas season. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right.
Yeah, I love this. I think this is just knuckles cracking or something. Let's see. Yeah, knuckle crack. In context, it really sounds like his neck is cracking.
On just right. It could be perhaps that I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small.
Yeah, what do we got going on here? So I think I have 3 different sound effects here layered to make this. So there's just kind of a normal heartbeat, and then I also, what's this, a balloon? Yeah, I wanted to have kind of this cartoony sound of like, whoa, 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 right? Like the sound of his skin bending as his heart beats, and then there's also this whistle squeak. What's that? Oh, yeah. So all together, we get this. Which, you know, when it's in context, doesn't sound as weird as...
That his heart was 2 sizes too small. That's one thing he hated. The noise.
Yeah, so that took a bunch of time to get together. First of all, I wanted to make sure, on the picture in the book, there's a whole bunch of kids running around playing with a bunch of different toys they've just unwrapped. And so I wanted to make sure I had some of that kind of chaotic, you know, a bunch of kids running around together, so I did this. So actually, some of those voices are my little sister Elise, because she has a more, genuinely kid-sounding voice, because she was a kid last year. Not anymore. Now she's an adult. She's older. So, and then you can hear me doing some kind of cartoony voices, like... I figure Who's would sound kind of strange and cartoony, kind of like Lilo and Stitch. Then I mixed that in with a cheer sound effect I heard. Okay, but the big thing was trying to get the sound of all the toys. I wanted to make sure, for one thing, at least it was just loud. And it took a while to get it sounding obnoxious. Yeah, that helped a little bit. I threw a marching band in there. I have a toy train. And then there's the actual train kind of chugging. And then, here we have these. I'll just solo those. Very, very cartoony and silly sounding.
Then he got an idea. An awful idea.
The music was really fun for this
the
part.
The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea.
Okay, so here we've got the Grinch putting together his Christmas suit, which I've got some scissors, I've got some hammering, I think. Let's see what all we got here. So we got scissors and a sewing machine and all that together. The Grinch making his outfit sounds like this. And there you go. Then he needs to make a reindeer, so he gets Max. Where's Max? I did a separate voice track for Max. Right here. Here's Max.
Dog, Max, come here. And he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then the Grinch said, "Get up!" And the sleighs started down toward the houses where the Who's lay a snooze in their town.
So I had to use a couple different sound effects to get this to work. I wanted to have the effect of, okay, so the sled has to start, and then we have to go down the hill. So we've got... That's kind of just a sled. And I need to have Max starting to pull the sled. So here I have some footsteps. And then he's got to start running. So I have this. And it kind of pans off to the right because that's where they're running. And then I change the sound effect because we have to hear the sled kind of moving away. So here. Right. And then I used that same sound effect again, but I kind of panned it differently and used a slightly different part of it to have the sled kind of approaching from the left and sliding in, because the next scene we have them arriving in Whoville. And then I have this other... Yeah, you can hear Max running up, and then you can hear the whole sled stopping. So I like that. I thought that turned out really good.
Chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head...
And actually, in order to make it sound like he's in the chimney, if you're in a chimney, you're going to hear a little bit of echo. So I made a separate track over here with a chimney reverb. I'm going to turn that on. So I just mixed a little bit of that in there just to get the effect of him sounding like he's in the chimney for a second.
Only once, for a moment or two.
Oh, this part's really fun.
He grinned.
So we get him swiping the stockings, which is a neat, fun little swipey sound effect. But all on the right side in the picture, you can see there's a whole bunch of Who kids sleeping. I had Angie help me do some of these voices. I have a whole bunch of little snoring sounds. You can hear there's like... Pretty adorable.
And now,
grinned the Grinch,
I will stuff up the tree.
There's some nice tree sound.
And the Grinch
here.
grabbed the tree, and he started to shove.
Then we get to hear the debut performance of Angie, my wife Angie.
Like the coo of a dove. Little
Doesn't that
Cindy
sound like
Lou
the coo of a dove?
who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter.
Okay, now the next section was musically
Then
really interesting.
he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses.
I tried to do a couple little ad-libs with the Grinch to kind of just bring the scene to life a bit more, even though he doesn't technically have dialogue there. But we get to the top of the mountain. Max is struggling to get that sleigh up there. The Grinch is grinchishly humming that he wants to send a boo-hoo to the Who's.
They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming.
There's a lot of just little sound effects here of, I mean, we got Max, but we also have, every time he kind of makes an adjustment, I added another little snow He's kind of adjusting himself because he's taken aback, you know? So he goes... Okay.
What?
So in a second, we have to have the Grinch's heart has got to transform, and that took a little while to figure out how I was going to make that work. I think what we've got here is, let's see. So the same kind of heartbeat more or less we had before, but I think I just kind of speed it up for one thing to kind of get it working properly. There we go. Yeah. And also, I think I have a balloon kind of stretching out so you can hear it's growing. There we go. Yep. And I think there must be an EQ filter on that that's kind of gradually opening up so we can hear it's like kind of getting bigger. Yeah.
Feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast.
So we got all the Who's again. They're all very excited to hear him back. I think if we just... all for like 1 second. There's like 30. Okay, then they're back here. He's handing out the gifts to them. They're all very thankful. Yeah. And then that's the end of the story. And I thought, okay, we need a little something extra, so I added just, this.
The end. Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas to you, too.
A little Christmas greeting from the Grinch. So I'm going to switch the sessions now. So we're good. So let's check this out. So when I was writing this, I exported this, which says The Grinch SFX only. So I just played the book, and I wanted to make sure every musical note, every musical cue synced up exactly to the line as the narration is happening. I wanted to make sure that the music kind of perfectly complemented that. And in order to do that, you have to have it playing right on top of where you're writing. So yeah, this is all the narration and sound effects. So I mute that, and we can just hear the music. So let's take a little listen here to this opening sequence. There we go. Now, how does it get any more Christmassy than little swelled strings, some church bells, and some sleigh bells? Like that, that's a Christmas soundtrack right there. So that's the first I just kind of started messing around, just playing the glockenspiel. Started riffing around. Pretty simple little melody. I kind of let that establish to be the kind of the main theme of the Who's. But I did actually, a lot of the music in here is very thematic, where a character will have a theme. This just felt like a good kind of opening feel. But then, so if I have the narration on here, you're going to see, as we change scene, we actually change key
A
too.
lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north
so now
of
we're
Whoville,
zooming into the Grinch a little bit,
not.
right?
The Grinch hated Christmas. The whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why.
Okay, this is cool. So I think it's cool anyways. I wanted to make sure that whenever we're with the Grinch, there's a different aesthetic feel to the music a bit. So whenever we're here, I decided, okay, there's going to be a Grinch instrument. And I ended up actually choosing a couple, but I just let him in general. So he's this kind of mountain-dwelling monster. So I chose kind of mountain folky instruments. So mostly it centers around the banjo, but occasionally we have like a fiddle in here, an auto harp, or a kind of a accordion, but just all these country. In my head, I'm kind of imagining the Andy Griffith. There's a family who lives up in the mountains, and I kind of was thinking about those guys. So the Grinch, he lives in the mountains, so he's got this kind of mountain folk vibe. Music that sounds like this. This is the Grinch theme. I come back to this melody every time we have kind of a Grinch scene. But then we hear a little bit of string swells in here because now we're talking about the Grinch's heart, and we're wondering, how did it get so small? Why is the Grinch such a Grinch? And then over here we're going to see the Who's in Whoville. We're going to find out what he's so upset about. So here's the Who. Now you can hear I've taken the same theme that I had and initially established, okay, like at the very beginning, the beginning theme of this is kind of like the Who Town theme. And I just tweaked it a tiny bit, we end up with a little bit more of kind of a frantic chord progression. The Grinch doesn't like what's going on here. It just seems obnoxious to him. Change key a little bit here. Things are getting more frantic. This is the loud noise that the Grinch can't stand. But it's still kind of joyful undertones there. Oh, now we're having the feast. It's hard to argue with a feast. Everybody likes food. Just very fun kind of sounding song. Okay, now we're moving over to the thing that he hates most of all, which is their singing. So I've got kind of a choral piece going on here. And then here, this is the big moment. So I'm just going to stop it right here. And I wanted to make it sure it wasn't just sounding like digital instruments. I wanted to, okay, if the Who's are singing, we're going to have the Who's sing. So you can see I've got a lot of tracks actually here for the Who's. Look at how many Who's we have. Because, I mean, if you look at the picture on the page, there's a lot of Who's there singing. I think we've got, I think about 20, maybe, yeah. And roughly half of them are me doing kind of silly different Who voices. And then we've also got my little sister Elise helped me out a bit too, and she did some. She helped out with some Who voices later on too. But we did a lot of this singing here together, and you can hear. I'm just gonna solo the voices just to hear that first. There we go. Turned out great. And then I knew after that we're going to hear them sing and then the narration's going to come in. But I want to kind of still have that sense of them singing. So we did like kind of a hummed version of it after. There we go. Let's hear it with all the music in there. Real big cymbal to get in here. The church bells. Just a little tinkly glockenspiel in there to keep things feeling magical. Uh-oh, now we're back to the Grinch. So I started the next little banjo part that we get into the Grinch hanging out again is initially the banjo plays the Who Christmas theme for a second here. And then immediately it's back to the Grinch. It's kind of annoyed sounding, kind of bluesy folk. And then he gets an idea. So this is kind of the whole next musical movement. We're getting into Act 2 of the story here. We got some pizzicato strings, and then the harmonium. That's kind of an accordion sounding instrument. So that is kind of the second instrument I found. Okay, this is kind of a Grinchy instrument. So together we get this nice... Just turn up the volume a little bit. All right, we're coming up with a plan here. Okay, and for just one moment, so this is when he realizes he's gonna ruin Christmas for everybody. There's this moment where we hear a little bit of the Who, like kind of their Christmas carol they sing. We get this kind of creepy, distorted, messed up version of it for the Grinch because he's like, I'm gonna mess up Christmas. So we hear fa la 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 la. We get. Bum, 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 bum. Actually, it looks like I've got a little bit of a violin kind of fiddle in there. Let's see where that track is. This is kind of fun. Sounds very... See, this is where I kind of was building off of the fact that I'm not very good at the violin or the fiddle. So I thought, oh, if I want it to sound kind of bad, I'll just play an instrument I'm bad at. But it has that kind of like creepy, silly, weird vibe, which I really wanted to embellish the Grinch's weirdness. So now things are getting a little bit more serious. Like, oh crap. Yeah, he's actually going to ruin Christmas. And we hear the Who's kind of sleeping. Okay, now we're getting to business. The Grinch is going to start slipping down some chimneys. We get the harmonium back. We're back into this kind of Grinch's plan theme.
Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight.
So that was a lot of fun. You can hear. So I did that. Partly, it's actually the fiddle, which again, you don't have to be a very skilled violin player to get this sound. And then also I've got the harmonium kind of doing a. So together we got. And then we're back to our little theme. Oh, this is, he gets stuck in the chimney for a second. So I have it, he's stuck in the chimney and he gets unstuck, and then the violin actually gets, it's the sound of him squeaking through the chimney, and then it actually lands on one of the notes in the chord to kind of say, okay, now we're back in track. Now he's tiptoeing. You have to have those high pizzicatos to have tiptoeing. But the banjo comes back here. You need to be a little bit of dynamic range to this. I didn't want to just do the same thing for 2 minutes straight. And you kind of feel like, okay, his plan is, now it's really starting to come to fruition here. And also what the strings are doing here, kind of creepy version of the Who Christmas Carol theme. The fa la 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 la. So Cindy Lou Who has just woken up, and she's confronting him. So that's what's happening here. We hear, let's see. He heard a sound like the coo of a dove. So this part, this is Cindy Lou has her own theme, and I'm actually really, really proud of how this kind of comes back and meets up with something later on, and I'm really excited to show that part. But for one thing, I just really love this little melody. I think it feels right for a cute kind of innocent image of like divine love, which is kind of how I see Cindy Lou Who.
And he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2.
Now you can hear the version of the Christmas theme that's now kind of up. His plans to ruin Christmas are maybe spoiled. I don't know.
The Grinch had been caught by this tiny
and then we got
daughter,
Cindy Lou's theme again.
Got out of bed for a cup of cold water.
So the Grinch, he figures out something. I think that there's no music for a little bit. He tells his lie, and I didn't want to give any forgiveness through the music there. Just let his lie stand for itself. What a jerk, that Grinch. So over here, this is the big finale musical sequence here. So he's made it up the mountain. He's just kind of hanging out. He's looking down at the town, and he realizes, oh, they're probably going to be realizing that Christmas is gone, and I want to hear them squirm and cry. And so there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen at once. He's going to realize that that he didn't steal Christmas. It didn't work out. And then he's going to have a bit of a change of heart, and he's going to decide to go back there. So there's a lot of musical moments that are all going to happen in about 1 minute. And this is, now we're getting to the top. You have the kind of those little glockenspiel tinkles just to let you know we're at the top of a mountain, and especially when you hear those with the wind.
Up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load.
It sounds like icicles.
To dump it.
Okay, so now here's the big sequence I was saying. So this all happens in about a minute. Maybe it's even longer than that. Yeah, you can see there's quite a few little things strung together here. But so here, we have the whole Who chorus kind of gradually, and it's panned in from the left side because that's where the Who village would be from the perspective of the Grinch. But as he listens a little bit closer... Yeah, I love how that came together. It just really felt like this very beautiful kind of spiritual moment. And then you get this, we have the banjo now in a much more contemplative mood because the Grinch is wondering, okay, did I really do the right thing? And then here is the moment I'm most proud of. I love what happened here. So earlier I showed you the Cindy Lou theme, which is boom, 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 boom. That moment is what the Grinch is kind of holding in his heart here. This is extra canon, but I wanted to kind of tie this together musically, that it's the innocence and kind of like this sense of divine love that he saw in Cindy Lou
that's what changes his heart. They do kind of clarify that because at the end he's sitting next to Cindy Lou, so you can see. I mean, obviously in the Jim Carrey movie, there's a more of a connection in there between him and Cindy Lou. But I love that. I think that makes so much sense. Like obviously she's going to be the one that changes his heart. So we have the Grinchy instrument, the Grinchy banjo. Listen to this. So what happened there is we have the Grinch kind of just in this, this chord progression we've never heard on the banjo so far. And then suddenly, very gently, the banjo... Actually, you know what? I've got the banjo right here. Here's the Grinch's banjo. So we get the Grinch suddenly finally playing in his own kind of version, his own little take on it, on the Who Christmas Carol theme. But behind it, with the little kind of magical glockenspiel, we hear Cindy Lou's theme. And they come together, and it's like, it's her music, it's her spirit that changed his heart. And that's what finally kind of comes to... I loved how, because musically it worked so well to mix those two themes together, where it's her music, it's herself that changes his heart. And so you hear them together. I love that. So now I'm going to have this... There's a lot of tension building because something's going to change. Something's got to give. His heart grows 3 sizes, and then we have this crazy key change. So that was a pretty weird key change to figure out how to do. I think I'm going from... Let's see what key I'm in here. C, and we want to end up in the key of F sharp. Kind of a weird key change. Let's see what I did. I built this big, huge chord. So it's we got the strings going with just C, and then we add the major third, and then another, now a 9, and then a 6, or I guess, let's see. In that context, it's kind of weird. So now we're kind of bridging the gap between C and F. Oh no, not even there, because A is not going to do anything in the key of F, but at least it's, or not the key of F sharp anyways. There's not an A in the key of F sharp. But I get this G. Yeah, I realized getting that G to land on the F sharp, that was going to be my tension and release note. So I just kind of threw a couple extra instruments playing that note and then let that be. So I had the choir here do it too. So super weird chord progression, chord change, but it worked out. The tension grows. What's he going to do with this sense of Christmas that he's finding in his heart now? We're going to get back to the opening theme, because now the Grinch is going to join in though. The church bells are ringing. Very resolving final set of chords. And I don't know, I was thinking about movies like The Polar Express. I don't know, Polar Express, I don't really actually love the story. I find it very confusing. But I remember the music being pretty good in that movie. Had a very good kind of Christmas vibe. And the choir kind of singing, that's something that really, I think, brings home this magical tone. So I had this, you can listen to the choir here. This is, I think, the most important instrument here. Obviously, we need those sleigh bells ringing, too. And there we go. That's the end. So that's the Grinch movie. Not really movie. I spent a long time editing all the pictures to kind of pan in and follow the scene as it kind of unfolded, which you can see if you want to just go watch the video. I think I put the link in the description so you can check that out. But I really love doing this. It took a long time, but if you know of anybody, or if you're making something like this, let me know. You can shoot me an email for a quote on doing sound design or voiceover, or doing music, or doing the whole production like I did for this story, because I would love to start doing that for people, just kind of for hire more often, because I honestly love this. I don't know if that's a pretty niche thing to love, but I loved
bringing kids' stories to life in, read along storybook fashion. I loved, throwing a tape in the tape player and turning through the pages, flipping through pages from the library when I was a kid. I used to spend so many afternoons doing that, and I would love to share more of that with, with the world. Help make some of those